All right, let's talk about the Chicago Bears. Look, obviously, regular season just a few short days away now. There's a lot to get excited about from this Bears team. Obviously, Poles and the entire front office has done an outstanding job through the offseason, through the draft. We've seen it come to fruition as we work through preseason and training camp. A few unfortunate injuries on the offensive line, but overall, the team is in a great direction. But there's a new report out that highlights a really smart move the Bears made that I think will pay off big time. The Bears didn't give in to temptation. They stuck to their plan, and it looks like it worked out based on this latest report.
Yeah, Nick, I think this is more of a future move as well, just showing that they have avoided any conflict in the future and actually probably built this team out to be better for the future for Justin Fields. So I think this is a great story that you dug up. Bears fans are going to love this one. But Bears fans, we just said it, season right around the corner this Sunday. Your Chicago Bears are going to kick off against the Green Bay Packers 4:25. So right before the game, we're taking all final predictions. What do you think the score to this game is going to be? This is the first time in probably a decade that you haven't played against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. So I'm excited to see some high scores in there. So a big time game for the Chicago Bears going up against this new Green Bay team that nobody really knows how they're going to do. So let us know in the comments below, what are your score predictions for Chicago versus Green Bay this coming weekend? But Nick, let's get on into it. What's going on with the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, so there's a lot of momentum behind Chicago right now, like I alluded to in the open. It's because they've done a lot of things right. Obviously, Justin Fields looks like a talented guy, adding in DJ Moore. Offense looks good. Defense looks a lot better. A lot of momentum and energy. It looks like the rebuild is heading in the right direction, and we'll see how it comes to fruition against the Green Bay Packers in a few short days. But one of the things when you're going through a rebuild, you always have to avoid the disastrous moves. You just make smart, steady, consistent moves, get your team set up in the right direction. Avoid the big mistakes and you'll be okay. It's like Jimmy Johnson, the Hall of Fame coach, once said, if you let other teams just screw it up and you stick to your plan, you'll find a way to be successful because other teams will screw it up and make the wrong move. And it looks like adding rookie Darnell Wright was the smart move. There's a new report out today that said another potential Bears target looks like a disaster. It looks like the Bears made the right move. We've got a report from Sports Mockery. Mize, if you want to throw it up, I will read from it. All right, so this is recently talking about Ryan Poles' decision to draft Wright over Jalen Carter, of course, the all-world defensive tackle coming out of Georgia. Poles was asked why the team chose to pass on Carter. It was unusual considering how obvious a fit he was for head coach Matt Eberflus's defense. The Tampa 2 required a dominant interior pass rusher to reach its full potential. Carter felt like a natural choice. Poles didn't beat around the bush. He outright stated why the Bears passed. Character will always be important to us. He didn't single out Carter by name, but the implication was obvious. The Bears were not comfortable with what they'd heard about the defensive tackle. A new in-depth ESPN article from Tim McManus shed light on the situation. Here's the new article out very recently from ESPN. Multiple Georgia coaches declined to go to bat for Carter during the pre-draft process. Again, it's according to McManus over at ESPN. According to sources familiar with the conversations, in part because he had grown disenchanted with his practice habits and attitude. The report would go on to say, the ESPN report highlighting Georgia and Jalen Carter, that he is not a team guy. He got in fights. He wasn't a hard worker, broke the rules all the time. This was the classic immensely talented guy who didn't believe he should have to put in the time, rode the success of a team around him to a national title, and was drafted in the top 10 by the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this is an example of what a really smart move by the Bears, not falling into this temptation. We see this happen every once in a while. A team falls in love with a prospect. They fall in love with his physical tools. They draft him. He's a head case. The team falls apart. The Cleveland Browns have been doing this for years and years and years and years, and we've seen the trouble that franchise is into. Teams that make the smart moves, get the steady, consistent ball players that may not be the sexy moves at the times, turn out to be really successful in the long term. The Patriots do this. The Chiefs do this. A lot of the best teams do this that are successful year in and year out. And this kind of reminds me a little bit, if you back out a number of years, where the Dallas Cowboys were linked extremely hard to Johnny Manziel coming out of Texas A&M. They resisted the temptation. They turned down Manziel. They went with the kind of unsexy pick, an offensive lineman from Notre Dame by the name of Zach Martin. Martin goes on to be an all-pro, is probably going to be a future Hall of Famer. Manziel's out of the league in a couple years. This is a very similar dynamic. I'm not rooting against Jalen Carter. I hope he turns it around, and I hope Darnell Wright becomes an all-pro just like Zach Martin. But having that right strategy puts you in a position to be successful. It's those little moves there. They start in the draft process, continue through mini camps, continue through training camp and preseason, and we're seeing on the field in a few days on Sundays. What Ryan Poles has done, the smart moves he's made, and specifically this one right here, I think is just setting the standard of why the Bears will be successful and why this turnaround will work.
Yeah, Nick, I do believe they made the right move getting Darnell Wright. It's kind of obvious in the name, even there. But I think there's a few things, especially in that article, that people are going to have to wait to see the true implications of this. It says the Georgia coaches and staff grew disenchanted with Carter, meaning at the beginning of his career, when everything was bright and shiny, he was a young pup coming from high school, coming into Georgia. He was excited. Everything is rosy. Of course, things will be good then. It's when the rubber meets the road, when, the crap hits the proverbial fan, that's when people show their true colors. Coming in, I would expect nothing but Jalen Carter to be on the straight and narrow because we haven't even played the first game of the season. Let them, experience a little bit of disappointment. Let this team not live up to expectation. Let him not be happy with the situation. Then I think the true colors come out. You see the fights with the teammates. Because that's the thing. This wasn't just off the field issues. It was on the field issues with, he punched a linebacker, former teammate, in practice in what they called a knockout punch, or I don't know why you would phrase it that way. But so apparently he punched him really hard on the practice field. So this is a guy that he really doesn't keep it doesn't keep it between the lines. He's not just letting all of his anger out on Sunday. He even let it boil over in practices against his own teammates. Just not the kind of person you want to have in the locker room. When it's easy, it is easy to keep those things contained, and it has been very easy so far because, as I said, they have not even played a single game yet. Nothing has gone wrong. But we have to see the season progresses, and it might even be 2 seasons till we see the true implications of what can go happen. Even Manziel looked kind of hopeful for the first season, maybe just a small bit. They're like, well, this could potentially work out. But after a couple of seasons, everyone knows how that story ends. There's a documentary about it on Netflix. If you don't believe me, you can go watch it yourself. But I think this is a smart move by Poles and Co. I think this set this team up, and I really, really like the decision that they made to get right at the right tackle position.
Yeah, because it is one of those things. If you fast forward a few years, if you look at what really matters to the Bears, and we heard it from the pundits all the time. Why did teams pass on Jalen Carter? He's amazing. When he fell to the Philadelphia Eagles, we heard all the same pundits say, oh, the Eagles got a superstar. It's the Eagles making great moves again and again and again. What are these other teams like the Bears? What are they thinking? They don't know what they're doing. But if you look at what Ryan Poles is doing, seeing out to the future, it's like, okay, what do we need? We've got our franchise quarterback. We've got weapons outside of him now. We need to build this offensive line around him. We get the young tackle. We start adding other pieces as well. We don't go all in on a defensive tackle that's going to play 50% of snaps at like a 3 technique, depending on the situation, because he's so big, not in great shape, and could be potentially a locker room cancer for us. You don't want to go down that route. No one should want to go down that route. That's what dumb teams do. The Eagles have usually been a smart team, not in this case, based on this report. The Bears, and I'm going to focus on this because I think it's really important. A lot of credit is due to Ryan Poles and everything he has done. We see this happen all the time in professional sports. Sometimes there's a lagging effect. When GMs and the people running the show make smart moves, eventually success comes. We saw it with the Chiefs. We saw it with the Patriots. We've seen it with the Steelers. We've seen it with any team that has sustained success in the NFL. When the front office makes smart moves, sometimes it takes a year, sometimes it takes less, sometimes it takes more. Eventually, it results on the field, and we'll see a lot of success. I don't know if this is the year the Bears break out and become a playoff team. They could. They've got a lot of talent. Really excited to see what Justin Fields does. But I tell you what, when you're making smart moves like Poles and the Bears are doing, success isn't that far away.